You know that moment when you drive through the countryside and spot those picture-perfect farmhouse gardens that make you slam on the brakes and reach for your phone? The ones with weathered wooden planters overflowing with herbs, vintage watering cans turned into charming displays, and rusty metal containers that somehow look more expensive than anything you could buy at the garden center? Well, what if I told you that those expensive-looking rustic gardens aren't expensive at all? In fact, the most stunning rustic garden oasis I ever saw was created entirely from what most people would call junk: discarded wooden crates, forgotten farm tools, and metal containers headed for the scrapyard. The secret isn't spending thousands at antique stores or high-end garden boutiques. It's knowing how to see potential in the forgotten treasures hiding right under your nose and having the insider techniques to transform them into authentic rustic magic that makes your neighbors think you hired a professional designer. Imagine walking out your back door tomorrow morning and being greeted by your own small rustic paradise, complete with weathered wood planters cascading with cottage flowers, vintage metal containers housing productive herb gardens, and authentic farmhouse touches that make your tiny space feel like a countryside retreat. And the best part, you create it all using materials that cost you practically nothing. Hey garden transformation warriors, welcome back to Daily Garden Fix. I'm your host, and today I'm pulling back the curtain on the rustic garden secrets that landscape designers don't want you to know. We're talking about authentic upcycling techniques that create genuine farmhouse charm without the farmhouse price tag. I've organized these ideas from simple weekend transformations to complete rustic makeovers, and you absolutely must stay until the end because upcycling technique number 20 is so brilliant and character-filled, people literally stop and ask for your decorator's contact information when you created it entirely from discarded materials. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I'm constantly sharing budget-friendly rustic design secrets that prove authentic garden charm comes from creativity, not cash. Rustic upcycling idea number 1, weathered wooden crate planters, the storytelling containers. Starting with rustic upcycling idea number 1, weathered wooden crate planters, and these character-filled containers instantly add farmhouse charm while providing perfect homes for everything from herbs to seasonal flowers. Here's why wooden crates work magic in small rustic gardens. They come pre-aged with authentic wear patterns, nail holes, and weathering that you simply cannot fake. Each crate carries its own history: apple crates from orchards, wine boxes from vineyards, shipping cans from distant places. I learned this technique from an old-timer gardener whose cottage garden looked like something from a storybook. She showed me how the key is embracing the imperfections, the worn corners, faded stenciling, and weathered wood that makes each planter completely unique. The secret to success is proper preparation. Line crates with landscape fabric to prevent soil spillage while maintaining drainage, and treat any rough edges to prevent splinters. Choose plants that complement the rustic aesthetic: trailing herbs, cottage garden flowers, or cascading succulents. Position crates at varying heights throughout your small space to create visual layers that make tiny gardens feel expansive and thoughtfully designed. Rustic upcycling idea number 2, vintage metal bucket gardens, the patented perfection. Number 2 is vintage metal bucket gardens, and these weathered containers bring authentic farmhouse character while solving drainage and mobility challenges in small garden spaces. Old galvanized buckets, rusty pails, and weathered watering cans become instant conversation pieces when planted with appropriate species. The natural patina and rust patterns create character that new containers simply cannot replicate. Here's a restoration secret I discovered: embrace the rust. Light surface rust adds authentic aging, but treat any rust that's eating through metal with rust converter to prevent further deterioration while maintaining that weathered appearance. An antique dealer told me that the most valuable garden buckets are those with original paint remnants, advertising graphics, or maker's marks. These details add historical interest that make your garden feel curated rather than randomly decorated. Drill drainage holes carefully to maintain structural integrity, and group buckets in odd numbers at different heights to create appealing compositions that anchor small garden spaces. Rustic upcycling idea number 3, reclaimed wood raised beds, the sustainable foundations. Rustic upcycling idea number 3 is reclaimed wood raised beds, and these sustainable structures provide perfect growing conditions while adding authentic rustic architecture to small garden spaces. Reclaimed wood carries stories in its grain: barn siding weathered by decades of storms, posts worn smooth by time, flooring planks polished by generations of footsteps. Each piece adds narrative depth that new lumber lacks. The key is selecting appropriate reclaimed wood. Avoid painted wood from unknown sources, check for structural integrity, and look for hardwoods that resist rot naturally. Cedar, redwood, and oak age beautifully while providing longevity. Here's what makes this technique so effective in small spaces. Raised beds define growing areas clearly while adding vertical interest and improving soil drainage. They also make gardening more comfortable and accessible. A master carpenter showed me how to preserve reclaimed wood's character while ensuring garden safety. Light sanding to remove splinters, natural oil finishes that enhance rather than hide the wood's patina. Rustic upcycling idea number 4, vintage tool garden art, the functional sculptures. Number 4 is vintage tool garden art, and these weathered implements become stunning focal points while celebrating agricultural heritage and adding authentic rustic character. Old garden tools, farm implements, and hand tools possess sculptural qualities that modern mass-produced tools lack. Their worn wooden handles, patinaed metal surfaces, and honest wear patterns create instant authenticity. The beauty is in strategic placement. Mount old tools on fence sections as wall art, create tool displays near plotting areas, or use larger implements like old wheelbarrows as dramatic planters. A folk art collector told me that the most appealing tool displays combine different materials and scales, mix wooden handles with metal heads, small hand tools with larger implements, and hanging pieces with ground-level installations. Treat metal surfaces with clear protective coatings to prevent further deterioration while preserving the authentic aged appearance that make these pieces special.
Rustic upcycling idea 5 is mason jar lighting systems, and these versatile glass containers create enchanting evening ambiance while adding vintage charm to small garden spaces. Mason jars work perfectly for rustic lighting because their thick glass, embossed lettering, and vintage styling automatically evoke farmhouse authenticity. They're also incredibly versatile for different lighting approaches. Solar fairy lights inside jars create magical firefly effects. Battery-operated candles provide safe flame-like flickering, and actual candles offer authentic romance for special occasions. Here's the professional secret. Vary jar sizes and heights to create lighting layers throughout your space. Hang some jars from shepherd's hooks, mount others on fence posts, and cluster ground-level jars for intimate seating areas. A lighting designer showed me how mason jar lighting works especially well in small spaces because it provides intimate illumination without overwhelming limited square footage with harsh, bright lighting. Rustic upcycling idea number 6 is vintage ladder plant displays, and these weathered climbing aids become stunning vertical garden features that maximize growing space while adding architectural interest to small garden spaces. Old wooden ladders possess character that modern versions lack. Worn steps polished smooth by use, weathered paint revealing wood grain underneath, and sturdy construction that has proven its longevity. The genius of ladder displays is their space efficiency. Each rung becomes a shelf for different-sized containers, creating living sculptures that showcase multiple plants in minimal floor space. Position ladders to lean against walls, fences, or structures for stability, and choose plants with varying growth habits, trailing species to cascade down, upright plants for middle rungs, and tall specimens to anchor the display. A vintage collector told me that the most desirable garden ladders show honest wear rather than artificially distressed surfaces. Authentic aging cannot be replicated convincingly. Rustic upcycling idea number 7 is repurposed wheelbarrow gardens, and these charming containers bring farmhouse authenticity while providing mobility and excellent drainage for small garden spaces. Even wheelbarrows with holes, rust, or broken handles make perfect planters. The flaws add authentic character that new containers cannot match, and holes provide natural drainage. The key is embracing the weathered patina rather than trying to restore wheelbarrows to new condition. Rust, faded paint, and worn surfaces tell stories that make gardens feel authentic and lived in. Position wheelbarrows as focal points near garden entrances, along pathways, or anywhere you want to create rustic charm and seasonal color displays that can be easily changed. Here's what makes wheelbarrow planters so effective. They're perfectly scaled for small gardens, provide excellent growing depth, and can be repositioned to follow sun patterns or create different seasonal arrangements. Rustic upcycling idea number 8 is vintage watering can collections, and these weathered containers serve as both functional tools and decorative elements that reinforce authentic rustic garden themes. Old watering cans made from galvanized steel, copper, or enamelware develop beautiful patinas that new versions simply cannot replicate. Each dent, rust spot, and worn area adds character and authenticity. The secret is mixing different sizes, materials, and styles throughout your garden space. Large cans as statement planters, medium cans as decorative accents, and small cans as herb containers or cut flower holders. A garden antique specialist showed me how watering cans with original paint, manufacturer labels, or unique spout designs become conversation pieces that anchor rustic garden themes. Use functional vintage watering cans for actual watering, while displaying damaged or purely decorative pieces as planted containers that celebrate agricultural heritage. Rustic upcycling idea number 9 is weathered fence section art, and these architectural salvage pieces become stunning garden backdrops while providing structure and privacy in small spaces. Old fence sections, barn siding, and architectural panels carry decades of weather exposure that creates authentic aging patterns impossible to duplicate artificially. Each board tells a story through its grain, nail holes, and weathering. The beauty lies in strategic placement. Use fence sections as garden room dividers, create backdrop walls for seating areas, or mount them as vertical gardens with attached planters. Here's the professional approach. Preserve authentic weathering while ensuring structural stability. Treat any rot, reinforce loose boards, and seal surfaces lightly to prevent further deterioration without hiding character. Position weathered fence sections to create intimate garden rooms within small spaces, providing privacy and visual interest while maintaining the open feeling that prevents small gardens from feeling cramped. Rustic upcycling idea number 10 is vintage ceramic and enamelware planters, and these authentic containers bring cottage garden charm while providing perfect growing conditions for herbs, flowers, and small vegetables. Old enamel pots, ceramic crocks, and stoneware vessels possess character that modern containers lack. Chips, crazing, and aged surfaces that create authentic vintage appeal, perfect for rustic gardens. The key is selecting pieces with good drainage potential and interesting character marks. Chips and stains add authenticity, while structural integrity ensures longevity for actual planting use. A ceramic artist told me that the most appealing vintage containers show honest wear patterns rather than dramatic damage. Subtle aging that suggests decades of careful use creates the most authentic appeal. Mix different ceramic styles throughout your garden for visual interest, while maintaining cohesive rustic themes through complementary colors and weathered surfaces. We're halfway through our rustic upcycling transformation, and I hope you're looking at that junk pile with completely new eyes. If these authentic rustic ideas are inspiring you to rescue and transform forgotten treasures, smash that like button and tell me in the comments what discarded item you're most excited to turn into garden gold. The second half includes some absolutely magical transformations that will make your small space feel like a countryside retreat. Rustic upcycling idea number 11 is salvaged brick and stone pathways, and these weathered materials create charming walkways that guide visitors through your small rustic garden while adding historical character. Reclaimed bricks from old buildings, weathered stones from demolished walls, and vintage pavers carry patinas and character marks that new materials require decades to develop naturally. The magic happens when you embrace irregular spacing, moss growth, and settled patterns that make pathways look like they've existed for generations rather than being recently installed. Here's the installation's secret. Prepare proper base materials for stability while allowing natural settling and character development. Slightly uneven surfaces add rustic authenticity that perfect installation lacks. A stonemason showed me how mixing different brick and stone types creates visual interest while maintaining cohesive rustic appeal. Vary sizes and colors while keeping consistent aging patterns.
Rustic upcycling idea 12, vintage garden gate entries, the welcoming portals. Rustic upcycling idea number 12 is vintage garden gate entries, and these weathered portals create magical transitions between garden spaces while adding architectural focal points to small rustic gardens. Old garden gates, farm gates, and architectural salvage pieces possess character that new gates simply cannot match. Worn hinges, weathered wood, and authentic hardware that speaks of decades of use. The key is finding gates that fit your space scale while providing the character and functionality you need. Even gates that no longer function perfectly can serve as decorative elements or be restored for actual use. Position gates to create the impression of garden rooms within small spaces, providing psychological separation and discovery moments that make tiny gardens feel larger and more complex. Treat gate hardware with appropriate preservation techniques while maintaining operational functionality for gates that will be regularly used in garden circulation. Rustic upcycling idea number 13. Reclaimed wood seating solutions, and these authentic furniture pieces create comfortable gathering spots while adding rustic character that invites lingering and small garden spaces. Weathered barnwood, old fence posts, and salvaged lumber can be transformed into benches, chairs, and tables that possess character and stories that new furniture cannot replicate. The secret is balancing character preservation with comfort and functionality. Sand rough surfaces smooth while maintaining weathered patina, and add appropriate cushions or pillows for comfort. A furniture maker taught me that the most appealing rustic seating combines different wood tones and weathering patterns, makes light and dark woods while maintaining consistent styling and proportions. Position seating to capture the best garden views while creating intimate conversation areas that encourage enjoying your rustic garden oasis. Rustic upcycling idea number 14. Vintage metal trellis systems. And these weathered supports provide perfect structures for climbing plants while adding vertical interest and authentic rustic character. Old iron fencing, vintage gate sections, and architectural metalwork develop beautiful rust patinas while providing sturdy support for heavy vines and climbing vegetables. The beauty is in the authentic aging, rust patterns, worn paint, and weathered surfaces that create character impossible to achieve with new materials. Here's the professional approach. Treat structural rust while preserving surface patina, ensuring safety and longevity while maintaining authentic rustic appearance. Train climbing roses, clematis, or edible vines on vintage metal supports to create living walls that maximize growing space in small gardens while providing privacy and visual interest. Rustic upcycling idea number 15. Salvaged window frame gardens, and these architectural elements become stunning garden features while adding vintage character and creating unique growing opportunities. Old window frames, with or without glass, create perfect structures for vertical gardens, called frames, or decorative elements that add architectural interest to small rustic gardens. The key is selecting frames with interesting proportions, weathered finishes, or unique hardware that adds authentic character while serving functional garden purposes. Mount window frames on walls as vertical planters, use them as cold frame tops for season extension, or position them as decorative elements that frame garden views. An architectural salvage expert showed me that windows with original hardware, unique mullion patterns, or weathered paint finishes become the most appealing garden features. Rustic upcycling idea number 16. Vintage farm equipment planters. And these authentic agricultural pieces bring legitimate farmhouse character while providing unique containers for seasonal displays. Old cream separators, milk cans, feed buckets, and farm tools possess authenticity and scale that perfectly complement rustic garden themes while telling stories of agricultural heritage. The magic lies in embracing original function while adapting for garden use. Maintain authentic appearance while ensuring proper drainage and plant health. Position farm equipment planters as focal points near garden entrances or seating areas where their character and scale can be fully appreciated by visitors. Choose plants that complement agricultural themes, herbs, vegetables, or cottage garden flowers that would have been grown alongside working farms. Rustic upcycling idea number 17. Weathered wood signage. And these authentic markers add personality while providing functional labeling and wayfinding in small rustic gardens. Reclaimed wood planks, Old barn siding and weathered fence boards become perfect canvases for garden signs that look authentically aged rather than artificially distressed. The secret is using authentic weathering patterns as design elements. Work with existing grain patterns, weathering, and character marks to create signs that feel organic to your space. A sign painter taught me that the most appealing rustic signs combine weathered backgrounds with simple lettering that complements rather than competes with the wood's natural character. Create plant markers, garden quotes, or directional signs that enhance your rustic theme while providing helpful information for both you and garden visitors. Rustic upcycling idea number 18, vintage textile garden elements. And these fabric treasures add softness and comfort while creating cozy touches in small rustic gardens. Old quilts, grain sacks, canvas tarps, and vintage fabrics can be repurposed into cushions, plant covers, or decorative elements that add comfort and authentic character. The key is choosing textiles appropriate for outdoor use or treating them for weather resistance while maintaining their vintage character and rustic appeal. Use vintage textiles seasonally, bring them out for special occasions or good weather while storing them safely during harsh conditions to preserve their character and longevity. Mix textile elements with hard surfaces to create comfortable outdoor rooms that invite relaxation and enjoyment of your rustic garden oasis. Rustic Upcycling Idea 19. Salvaged Architectural Details, the Craftsmanship and Character Builders. Number 19 is salvaged architectural details, and these unique elements add sophisticated rustic character while creating focal points that elevate small garden spaces. Old corbels, newel posts, shutters, and architectural trim pieces possess craftsmanship and character that modern versions rarely match, making them perfect for distinctive garden features. The beauty lies in strategic placement. Use architectural elements to create garden structures, support systems, or decorative accents that add visual weight and historical interest. An architectural historian taught me that the most effective use of salvage details maintains their original proportions and character while adapting them thoughtfully for garden applications. Position architectural elements where they can be appreciated both functionally and aesthetically, creating garden features that serve practical purposes while adding authentic rustic character. Rustic Upcycling Idea 20. Vintage Container Herb Spirals. And these creative arrangements combine multiple upcycled containers into functional growing systems that maximize space while creating stunning visual displays. Use graduated sizes of vintage containers, large crocks at the base, medium buckets for middle tiers, and small cans or pots for the top to create spiral herb gardens that provide multiple growing environments in minimal space. The secret is arranging containers to create natural drainage flow while providing different sun exposures and soil depths for various herb requirements. This technique combines multiple upcycling elements into one impressive feature that serves as both garden focal point and productive growing system, perfect for small rustic gardens. A permaculture designer showed me how spiral arrangements naturally create microclimates that allow growing diverse herbs in compact spaces while maintaining beautiful visual appeal. Before we wrap up, here are 5 bonus rustic upcycling ideas that deserve special mention. Vintage canning jar storage. Transform old canning jars into organized tool storage, seed-saving containers, or seasonal decoration displays. Weathered board plant markers. Use reclaimed wood scraps to create authentic plant labels that weather naturally alongside your garden. Old boot planters. Embrace the whimsical charm of worn work boots and rain boots as unique containers for trailing plants and herbs. Vintage basket collections. Group weathered baskets as decorative storage, seasonal planters, or harvest containers that add authentic farmhouse appeal. Salvaged hardware accents. Incorporate old hinges, handles, and metal fittings as decorative details on garden structures and containers. Each of these proves that authentic rustic character comes from genuine materials with real history rather than artificially aged new products.
With these 20-plus rustic upcycling techniques, you have everything you need to transform forgotten treasures into a stunning small rustic garden oasis that feels authentic, inviting, and completely unique. Remember, the most beautiful rustic gardens aren't purchased, they're discovered, rescued, and lovingly transformed using creativity and vision rather than credit cards. The best part about upcycling for rustic gardens is that imperfections become assets. Where patterns add character, aging creates authenticity, and each rescued piece brings its own story to your garden narrative. Which of these rustic upcycling ideas made you most excited to raid your storage areas and local salvage sources? Are you ready to transform those old wooden crates into storytelling planters? Excited about creating magical mason jar lighting? Or maybe you're inspired to see vintage metal containers with completely new possibilities. Drop a comment below and tell me what forgotten treasure you're most excited to rescue and transform into rustic garden gold. Share photos of your upcycling projects. I love seeing how these concepts work with different materials and creative interpretations. If this video opened your eyes to the rustic treasure hiding all around you, smash that like button and subscribe to Daily Garden Fix. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our money-saving rustic garden tips and creative upcycling inspiration. Next week, I'm sharing my complete guide to sourcing authentic vintage garden materials from flea markets, estate sales, and salvage yards. You won't want to miss those treasure hunting secrets. Follow us on all social media platforms for daily rustic garden inspiration, quick upcycling tips, and seasonal ideas that keep your rustic oasis looking authentic and beautiful year-round. Remember, the most cherished gardens are those that tell stories, celebrate history, and prove that beauty comes from seeing potential in forgotten things rather than buying perfection from garden centers. Thanks for joining me on this rustic upcycling journey, and here's to creating garden oases that feed both your plants and your soul while honoring the stories hidden in rescued treasures.